Hello, I'm Daniel. I'm going to tell you about the teaching called the Six Perfections today. The Six Perfections is a list that was created early in Mahayana Buddhism, early in the greater vehicle of Buddhism, that are listed as things that we cultivate that help us in the Bodhisattva path, that help us to awaken and also to stop harming ourselves and others so much. And that's really what we're talking about trying to do now. Perfection doesn't mean that we're doing these things perfectly, obviously. It just means that cultivating these virtues is very, very important. The six perfections are considered a complete roadmap to awakening. So I'm going to go through them one by one and just describe what they are. So the first one is the perfection of generosity. And a lot of times we hear about generosity and we think it's just about, donating food to a food drive or giving to a homeless person that asks for change or whatever. We often think about that as generosity, or loaning money to a friend that is on hard times or whatever. And those things are great examples of generosity, but what we don't always think about is giving our time, or giving extra patience to someone who's struggling and lashing out, or helping people with difficult tasks. So if you help an old lady cross the street, you're giving generosity. That's what we talk about in Boy Scouts, helping old ladies cross the street all the time. But that's what we're talking about, generosity. It's giving anything. And I also like to think of generosity as listening. So if someone really needs to talk and we just give them the space to listen, and we actually listen instead of doing what we normally do, which is waiting for our turn to talk, right? So I'm talking about really listening, active listening, where we're really caring about what the person has to say. That is a form of generosity. The second perfection is the perfection of virtue. And sometimes people call this perfection of morality. I think morality is a word that we bring a lot of baggage to sometimes, so I don't like it. I like to say virtue instead. And it's not necessarily about following rules, although there are plenty of rules in Buddhism, but more importantly, this is the idea of living in harmony with others in a way that can help ourselves and others as much as we can. We want to bring harmony to all our relationships, whether personal or professional. If we set an example of virtue, if we set an example of trying to be harmonious, then we can make the world a little bit of a better place. It might not seem like it, but we can make things a little bit better, at least in our little corner of the world. The third one is the perfection of patience. And this represents not just patience with ourselves and others, but also tolerance and endurance. It's our ability to weather the storm of life, to bear hardship without letting it tear us down, and especially to avoid lashing out at others because of our personal difficulties. So we've all been kicked in the heart, and it's really easy to let that get us down, and we're trying to cultivate this perfection of patience so that we strengthen our ability to not let it tear us down when things go badly. The fourth one is the perfection of diligence. Diligence, and this is about tirelessly overcoming obstacles, walking the path even when it's difficult and when it would be simple to give up. If we didn't have diligence, then we might not have the determination necessary to continue to walk the path when things get difficult. So diligence is what makes us get on the cushion and meditate when we really don't want to. Diligence is what also makes us show compassion when we really think the person of our compassion, doesn't deserve it. Diligence is what keeps us doing it anyway. I think it's often overlooked on this list, and it's really important because not showing compassion is really easy, and not meditating is really, really easy. So it's with diligence only that we're able to just keep coming back. Next is the perfection of concentration. And this represents those practices that are dedicated to helping us improve our focus and concentrate. These include several meditation and mindfulness practices. We're cultivating our mental stability and our ability to contemplate things clearly without getting distracted all the time, without our preconceptions getting in the way all the time. We're training our minds so we can have focus, composure, and tranquility. And these practices are a lot of things like following the breath, or mentally reciting a mantra, or actually reciting a mantra, right? Anything that tries to bring our attention just to one thing, that's a concentration practice. And then the last one, and a lot of people say this is the most important, is the perfection of wisdom. The perfection of wisdom represents transcendental wisdom and insight. That sounds really heavy. This is an understanding beyond words and concepts, an intuitive understanding of emptiness and the connection to all things. It's our struggle to transcend the ego, the small self, and to get in touch with our true self, our higher self. When we act with our higher self in mind, with our connection to others, then we're dwelling in enlightenment in a very real and complete way. And some of the practices that help us cultivate this are formless practices. So rather than concentration practices are when we're trying to follow the breath or follow a mantra or look at a mandala, whatever kind of stuff like that is. And perfection of wisdom practices are things like formless practices, where I'm just going to sit in this awareness and I'm not going to try to do anything but witness what my mind is doing. That is a wisdom practice because it helps us have a good understanding of ourselves without trying to control ourselves. And we can see just how crazy our minds can be when we just pay attention. So, those are the 6 perfections, and I hope you have enjoyed this talk. Thank you for being here with me.